I get asked this all the time. Why VR esports? Who cares? Yeah, so why do we care so much about esports? I've got thousands of hours in Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six Siege, the original Rainbow Six. I remember playing on dial-up, and then when I got broadband, starting to play a lot more competitive, and just kind of all the different things that high-speed internet unlocked, all the things that better hardware unlocked, and then things people don't think about so often, but better input devices, better mice, better keyboards. VAIL VR is kind of the future extension of that in a sense, because now we have these crazy human interface devices. We have VR headsets. You go way deeper now than you ever could before with a mouse and keyboard. And for anyone that really celebrates the spirit of sports, team play, the drama of wanting to win, I think VR is kind of the future. I can't imagine it being anywhere nearly as exciting watching someone play a traditional FPS on a mouse and keyboard in the future. The peak of our pyramid is competitive integrity. And something that always comes up in VR is a factor that is just a reality in something like VR, which is player height. We're all a different height. We all have our eye level at a different eye level. What we've done in VAIL is we've eliminated that. We've normalized everybody's height to a nominal height, so all players in the world are at the same eye level. It's very important for level designers to be able to design cover and positioning on maps. Otherwise, obviously, some players would have a natural advantage over others. That also means that we have, part of our system has continuous crouch, where the same way you can move any way you want, you can also move any way you want, horizontally and vertically. So within a very reasonable limit, you can go up or down with your joystick. And this also helps for accessibility and just general comfort of play. We're working right now on tuning how virtual crouch works to gain some additional anti-cheat mitigation, some additional play space hacking mitigation built in for free with the feature because of how it works under the hood. It's going to make sure that you are within a valid range at all times and that your animation looks correct. Firearm interactions, we've had to spend a lot of time researching and spending time with real firearms to try to get everything that's fun and awesome from the sport of marksmanship and gun courses and all these things that kind of feed back into the loop of what makes it fun to play, what increases the skill ceiling, what makes it more interesting to watch. Animation, I just want to say that animation is something we care about very much, and it is definitely just a pain point in virtual reality in general. I reopen Alex every so often to try to learn from it because I do think Valve is overall a brilliant company and they do amazing hardware and software in games. Opening up Alex, I was just reminded what we're doing is crazy, because in Alex you just get 2 tomato hands or potato hands or hands, whatever you want to call them, floating hands, right? We want so much more and we're doing so much more that Valve with Alex didn't even bother trying to do. They were like, screw that, that's gonna take too long, it's too crazy. It is crazy, but we do care very much about it, and I know that in the future it will be an expectation of players. They will expect it, because that's how we live in the natural world. You're grounded to your body. It's just weird not to. Another reason we care about it is because it directly affects hit reg. So the better we get at our animation system, the more accurate we make it, and the more aware a player is of how their body looks and is positioned, the more aware they are of what is exposed or not exposed. Just through all of that, they have a heightened awareness of how hit reg is working, because now you can see where your body is, which your body ends up becoming your hitboxes. So it's really important that we have that animation system working in a way that when you look down at your body, you're like, this makes sense. Now you don't have to wonder, was some crazy IK popping thing happening where my elbow was out 90 degrees around the corner, and when I was peeking, like my arm was stretching in some weird bizarre way and that's why they killed me. You don't have to think about that so much anymore, because it's calculated the same way on your computer as it is calculated on the server, as it is calculated on the computer of your opponents. So even if it's not perfect, at least you can look down and you will have an incredibly accurate idea of how other players see you. And that's something we've fought for. So smokes. Smokes have been a really interesting thing in first-person shooters for a very, very long time. So going all the way back to like 1.5 Counter-Strike-ish days, a long time ago, because of the limitations of hardware back then, where they had the really awful low quality smoke with cards versus the nice volumetric smoke, the fluffy cloud smoke. That created very different experiences for people on different hardware. And even if everybody was using the same fluffy smoke, it would render in different parts of the map sometimes off by meters, which was not okay. Now today, fast forward to VAIL. Today, right? The way we've decided to approach the problem, we've taken certain liberties with the reality that our game is set in the near future. It's got science fiction in it, always plausible, always somewhat realistic, but we have that advantage because of the lore of our franchise and universe. So our smokes, you will be basically guaranteed that they will pop in the same location. They will block the same angles for all players. It sounds like it should be simple, but it's not. And then there are certain things we have to do to help compensate for network latency, just to better time align events so that players feel a lot more like they're in the same arena, playing the same game together with the same experience. Everything about smokes and flashes will be computed completely server side with additional validation checks to just help mitigate any like crazy stuff that we still can't foresee. But the way we've written it, it just makes it a lot easier to add a lot of additional anti-cheat measures, and you can count on it being completely synchronized with one source of truth, which is the server. We'll continue to tune things. We'll continue to add all kinds of mitigations and backstops to make sure that players don't get away with doing things they shouldn't be able to do. A lot of times these sort of things we add are extremely speculative, more so just to help prevent the possibility from even existing when we think it doesn't already technically exist. It's not fun to play a game that's laggy. It's not fun to play a game where everybody's rubber banding around. It's not fun to play a game when you get shot by someone that's behind the wall, like how did they shoot me? No one likes these things. So yeah, we're very much awake at the wheel. We're flying the plane. Like, that's something that players shouldn't be stressed about. I will mention one thing that adds to the overall perception of these things at times are animation systems in VR, depending how they work. But in our game, because we have a very complex animation system, there are times where the animation system will hiccup and it'll give the perceived effect of, oh, there's a network issue. But there isn't, it's really the animation system. So that's something we are working on. The same way that we've dealt with perceived latency and perceived time to kill and all of these different other things. And I say perceived because sometimes you measure something and something about how you do a visual effect or an animation or something else will change how people think of how the thing works. It'll change the way they think about, should I be going for neck shots or should I be going for headshots? What's gonna give me that competitive advantage? So all these things feed into that. So yeah, that's kind of the big, messy, crazy thing about it all. Tools for casters and streamers are very important to us. It's something that we've been slowly building out a team just to focus on. And we've built up some partnerships specifically relating to that and tech for that. It's a tough area and it's something that has a tendency to be left for last or for later. And that's why we've decided to do this tournament during early beta, just so that we can learn more about what casters need sooner, so that for the long term, we start building those things now and bettering those things now and really dialing in the requirements of those things now. It's not really something you can just bolt on at the end, because there's so much in the game code that has to be set up in a certain way for casters to get really cool and good tools. So we've made it a lot harder on ourselves just by taking on the work, but we're happy to do it because at the end of the day, it makes the game more fun to watch, more fun to play. For organized competitive play, something that we're working on with our team and some external help as well is a match orchestration system where you can plan matches at certain times for organized competitive play, and players will have predetermined access, pin codes, names of the matches, who's playing who, etc. Match orchestration is kind of a thing no one talks about, but if you're trying to run a large tournament and a large league with thousands of games, it becomes not manageable for any human to put up all those servers, take them down, make sure the right teams have the right access at the right time to the right games so that you don't have random people joining the wrong thing at the wrong time. So yeah, match orchestration is something we're working on. Another layer to match orchestration, we're going to start work on it later this year. and I think it's quite important also, is reporting of stats from the games back to a centralized repository or storage for the leagues. Any good league, the good league, is going to want to be able to collect those stats and feed it back into their website for their players so that players can see how they're doing. And then also our system, which is for demo, playback, or replay, whatever you want to call it. So having that functionality of replays is incredibly important for competitive play, for obvious reasons of, oh, you know, we think some funny thing happened or someone dropped out and we don't remember what happened, or we just want to be able to make a decision on the outcome of a match because of some complex league reason or league rule. You need to be able to hit a button and play that game back and see everything that was going on and all the events that were firing on the server so you can inspect them and that kind of thing. So why are we not on standalone VR? We're not on standalone VR because it creates so many disparities in experience between players that it's just not fun. Now, if you're creating a game that is for standalone VR today, and you're okay with it being that thing on that headset, and then a new headset coming out in 6 months that's 4 to 8 times more powerful, and then no one wants to play that thing on the old headset, that's awesome. And like, I think it's kind of fun also that there are studios that focus on shipping a lot of smaller titles that are, it's more like the mobile games business, and they keep shipping and rolling stuff out, and that is a totally valid business model, and some consumers do want that, obviously, and that's totally cool. What we're working on is a very long-term franchise and vision, and that's just not compatible with what we're doing, so that's why we don't do standalone. That being said, even if we did want to do standalone, let's just say hypothetically we wanted to do it today or in the near future, no one wants to admit it, but you would need to have different collision on PC versus standalone. You would need to have very different graphics on PC versus standalone. All these things that you're gonna end up eventually in some situation, no matter how amazing and meticulous the level designers and the programmers and everybody are, you're gonna have a different experience that's gonna give someone an obvious advantage on one platform versus the other. You just are. So that doesn't work. So that's why we don't do it. It's brutal because people ask me all the time, hey, I really want to play your thing, and I'm very sympathetic to that, but we just can't do something that we don't feel 100% about. VR esports in general, it's just a massive discussion because there is no good reference for anything like it. To have a truly competitive game that's going to be played on a massive scale, you need a large team, you need funding, you need to have a lot of foresight, you need to make a lot of very important architectural changes and a lot of very important architectural decisions very early on in the development of the project for it to actually have a meaningful long-term position in esports. In some ways it feels kind of crazy to say it, but I do feel that we're first in this realm. We are going to be the first de facto competitive VR esports game. We're doing it hand in hand with the community. We can't do it without the community. We can't do it without the players, the organizations, the production companies, the teams, the leagues. It would be so incredibly arrogant of us to not listen to the community. It just wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't even have a game at that point. I think one of the things that's important about VAIL is that we push ourselves very hard to always be shipping. The thing that makes shipping those continuous updates so important is that it tightens the feedback loop between what we hear from our community and then the things we fix. And it allows us to better prioritize what we fix and in which order we fix it. We do hear everything. We spend a lot of our time just organizing all the feedback, prioritizing it. I think that the thing that's most important is that we're willing to try things that the teams and players are asking for. Even when we have a pretty strong sense of what the outcome will be, we still try these things and we're pleasantly surprised all the time. And then these things become a part of the game and it's great. And that's just something that it's very natural for a game. The meta will evolve, a lot of the features will evolve, the player base will evolve. If those things all don't evolve together, then a game just grows stale and people stop playing it. So why even make the game, right?
One of the main reasons VAIL is such a big deal is that it's the first VR game designed from the ground up as an esport. VAIL is not the first VR esport, but every other game before became an esport after the fact, and it often happened without the explicit support of the developers. It's always been this weird situation where the esports communities that form around VR games received mixed levels of involvement from the makers of the games they play, ranging from interested to indifferent to outright hostile. In many cases, the esports scenes in VR exist in spite of their developers rather than because of them. There are a few developers who recognize the value of esports, but they are the exception and not the rule. For the first time, a VR exclusive studio has not just the interest, but the kind of resources that are needed to build a world-class esports experience, which goes beyond pure game development. It means running events to build communities on platforms like Discord, putting on high-quality tournaments, including LANs, and creating partnerships with big content creators and companies who want to get involved in this cutting-edge scene. All of these are too capital-intensive for the majority of indie VR dev studios, but XLab is in a unique position to make all of it happen. From the perspective of an esports league like the IVRL, it's been a fantastic experience. XLab communicates every day with a competitive scene, and we talk to them on a regular basis about anything we think needs to be fixed or built out to maintain competitive integrity. They're setting a trend with how close they're integrated with their esports scene, and it's clear that the future of VR esports is bright with companies like XLab taking these first critical steps.
I get asked this all the time. Why VR esports? Who cares? The reason why it's so important, VR esports, is because when people watch others play, especially in the context of these incredibly high skill ceiling matches and tournaments where people are actually playing on the highest level. The reason why it's so important that we build a game that people can feel is worth trying to play on its highest level is because when people watch these tournaments or watch these games, it's aspirational. You might not be the best player in the world, but you watch that, you learn a lot about how to play the game, you learn a lot about how to enjoy the game, you get to enjoy the drama of watching someone else want to win. It's an amazing story. Being able to watch that, see how it all works together, as a prospective customer, which is a player, it's amazing. You've sold me at that point. If I watch a tournament and I see how bad others want to win and I see how high the skill ceiling really is, I've learned how to play the game, I want to play the game, and now I'm going to play the game just because of that. And it was delivered to me in this like entertaining manner. It's marketing, it's onboarding, it's getting someone hooked. So that's why we do it. That's the business reason. The other reason is because I want to play a game that's on that level. And our devs, we all want to play a game that's on that level. It's also for selfish reasons, but it is justified and it does make business sense. And then there's a lot of competitive players that seem to agree with us too. So I think we're doing it for all the right reasons. And then we always get hit with the, well, why don't others do it? Because it's hard. It's really hard, that's why. No one wants to do hard things, it's not fun. You could just make a mobile game, and with a mobile game you could print tens of millions of dollars. Why do you want to work so hard? Because we just want to do something different. If we're not doing something different, then it's just not exciting and we're not going to attract the talent we want to make this a long-term thing. We're not in the business of just spinning up another random IP every 2 years and having something on Nintendo Switch and having something on tablet and having something on Quest 2 and like that business model, I wouldn't be good at it. And I don't think anyone that works at this company would be good at it. People want to work on something long-term that's stable, that's good, that they can see over time, how they evolve as a person, how they evolve as a player, and how the dialogue and conversation with players grows and we make a better game together. That's what we want to do. And that takes years to do. And it's not easy. It's not something you can just pick up one day and say, I want to do that thing. Even with all the money in the world, you can't just do that thing. It takes years and finding the right team and having a lot of luck. You need to have all the ingredients. So that's why we're so lucky and we have it all.